The big spaceship landed softly on the strange planet. Its metal doors opened with a hiss. Out stepped Alan West, the only human among 20 alien students. He carried one bag over his shoulder and looked up at the huge glass building in front of him. This was the Galactic School of Medicine, the best place to learn about aliens and their bodies in the whole universe. Alan felt his heart beat faster. He was the first human ever to study here. Back home in Kansas, he had been just a regular guy who liked to look at the stars. Now, 5 years after aliens first visited Earth, he was about to learn how to be a doctor for all kinds of strange life forms. The air here smelled like mint and metal. 2 suns shined in the purple sky. Alan took a deep breath and walked toward the school entrance. Other students moved around him. Some had 6 legs, others floated instead of walked. One looked like a big blue tree with eyes. None of them looked like humans. "Welcome, Earth student," said a voice. Alan turned to see a tall, thin alien with skin that glowed soft green. The alien had 4 arms and wore a white coat with strange symbols on it. "I am Professor Zeal. I will be your main teacher." "Thank you," Alan said. "I'm very happy to be here." Professor Zeal's face changed shape in what might have been a smile. "Many students are excited to meet the human. Your kind is new to space travel. We have much to learn from each other." The professor led Alan into the building. Inside, the halls were wide and the ceiling was very high. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around them. Some looked at Alan with their many eyes. Others moved away quickly as if scared. "Humans have a strange reputation," Professor Zeal said quietly. "Some aliens think you are dangerous. Others think you are very weak. We will see the truth during your time here." They came to a large round room with tables and strange machines. 3 aliens stood near one table, talking in low voices. They stopped when they saw Alan. "These will be your lab partners," Professor Zeal said. "This is Glox." The professor pointed to a round alien covered in blue fur with 6 eyes that blinked at different times. "This is Vreen." A tall, thin alien with skin like silver metal nodded at Alan. "And this is Torque." The 3rd alien was short and wide with rough orange skin and hands that had 7 fingers each. "Hello," Alan said with a smile. "I'm Alan from Earth. I look forward to working with you all." The aliens looked at each other. Vreen spoke first. "We have studied humans in our books. You are mostly water. You break easily. You have only 2 eyes and 2 hands. How do you manage?" Alan laughed. "We do okay. We may not be as tough as some aliens, but we're good at solving problems." Torque made a bubbling sound. "The human thinks it is funny to be weak?" "Strange." Professor Zeal raised 2 of his 4 hands. "That is enough questions for now. Tomorrow we begin our first class. Today, Alan will settle into his room." The professor took Alan to a small room with a bed, a desk, and a window looking out at the purple sky. "Rest well, human. Tomorrow will be challenging." When the professor left, Alan sat on his bed and looked out the window. Far away, past the school grounds, he could see a city with tall, strange buildings. Alien ships flew between them. It was nothing like Earth. Alan opened his bag and took out a small picture of his family back home. His mom, Dad, and little sister smiled at him from the image. He missed them already. But he was here to learn to be the first human to really understand alien bodies and how to help them when they were sick or hurt. The next morning, Alan got up early. He put on his blue student uniform and went to the classroom. Professor Zeal stood at the front of the room. The walls were covered in pictures of strange alien bodies. 20 students sat at desks that were all different shapes and sizes, made to fit their very different bodies. "Today," Professor Zeal said, "we learn about emergency care. What do you do when someone is hurt badly? Each species has different needs." The professor showed pictures on a big screen. A Zorkian needs cold water if injured, the picture showed. A fish-like alien. A Belen needs darkness and quiet. This alien looked like a big orange ball. A Vex needs to be turned upside down. This one had 12 legs and 3 heads. "What does a human need?" asked Glox, looking at Alan with all 6 eyes. Professor Zeal turned to Alan. Would you like to explain, Earth student? Alan stood up. All the alien students looked at him. Some seemed curious. Others seemed worried, as if he might do something scary. Humans are pretty simple, Alan said. If we're hurt, we need to stop any bleeding first. Then we need clean water, medicine to stop infection, and sometimes stitches to close wounds. We heal slowly compared to some of you. You cannot grow back lost parts? Asked Torque, sounding surprised. No, Alan said. If we lose a finger or arm, it's gone forever. The aliens whispered to each other. One made a sound like a sad whistle. This is why today's lesson is important, Professor Zeal said. Each species has strengths and weaknesses. As doctors, you must know them all. After class, the students went to the lab room. Each team of 4 had their own table with tools and machines. Alan stood with his partners, Glocks, Vreen, and Torque. They still seemed nervous around him. Today we practice emergency response, Professor Zeal told the class. Each team will work with fake wounds on test dummies. You must figure out the right treatment for each species. The professor put a different dummy on each table. Alan's team got one that looked like a tall, thin alien made of something like clear jelly. This is a Gillen, Professor Zeal said. It has a cut on its middle section. What do you do? Glocks moved forward. Gleans need vibration to heal. Their bodies are mostly liquid held together by energy. He picked up a tool that hummed when turned on and held it near the dummy's cut. Alan watched carefully. He had never seen anything like this. On Earth, no one vibrated to heal a cut. But it made sense if your body was mostly liquid. Very good, Professor Zeal said. Next team. As they watched the other teams, Alan noticed the aliens were starting to stand closer to him. They weren't as afraid now. Vreen even asked him a question about Earth medicine. Do humans really cut each other open to fix internal problems? Vreen asked. Yes, Alan said. We call it surgery. It's very common. But it must hurt terribly, Torque said. We use medicine so the person doesn't feel pain during it, Alan explained. But yes, recovery can hurt. Fascinating, Glock said, all 6 eyes wide. Humans are stranger than I thought, Alan smiled. I think the same about all of you. At the end of the day, Alan went back to his room. He felt tired, but happy. He had learned so much already. And maybe the alien students had learned something too, that humans weren't so scary or weak after all. Just different. Tomorrow would bring new lessons. Alan looked out at the alien world with its purple sky and 2 suns now setting. He was very far from home, but he was where he wanted to be. Among the stars, learning how to help all the strange and wonderful life that filled the universe. Greg Miller stared out the viewport of the horizon as the massive Lorellian mothership came into view. It looked like a giant crystal snowflake, with sections that glowed in soft blues and purples. Greg's heart beat faster. After years of studying languages from all over Earth, he was about to meet actual aliens. Miller, you ready? Asked Captain Joe Brooks, adjusting his uniform. Remember, you speak only when spoken to. These Lorellians reached out to us, but that doesn't mean they're friendly. Greg nodded. At 32, he was the youngest member of Earth's first deep space diplomatic team. He hadn't expected to be here. His job was to learn the Lorellian language, not to be part of the first contact team. But when the aliens sent messages in a language no computer could decode, Greg's unusual ability to see patterns in speech made him valuable. I'm ready, sir, he said. Though his dry mouth suggested otherwise, the shuttle bay doors opened, and 6 humans entered the alien ship. The air smelled like cinnamon and rain. The walls glowed with soft light that seemed to come from nowhere. 4 tall figures waited for them. The Lorellians stood about 7 feet tall. Their skin glowed like it had lights underneath. They had no hair, but their heads were crowned with what looked like crystal growths. Their eyes were large and completely black with no visible pupils. Welcome, humans of Earth, said the tallest one in perfect English. I am Ambassador Threll. We have been watching your world for some time. Captain Brooks stepped forward. We are honored by your invitation. I'm Captain Joe Brooks of the Earthship Horizon. The Lorelian gestured with long, six-fingered hands. Please, join us for the welcome ceremony. We have much to discuss. The team followed the aliens through hallways that seemed to grow out of the floor. Greg noticed that the Lorelian skin changed colors slightly as they walked, shifting from blue to purple and back again. Ambassador Threll explained various rooms and technologies as they walked. Greg tried to take notes on his tablet, but there was too much to process. He heard terms like psychic amplification chamber and living metal cultivation pools that made no sense to him when they entered a huge garden area. Greg stopped in his tracks. Plants of all colors grew everywhere, some floating in midair. Flowers opened and closed as if breathing. Trees with crystal leaves chimed softly when touched by air currents. This is our botanical collection, said one of the Lorelians. Species from 1,000 worlds. Greg wandered toward a plant with blue flowers that seemed to follow his movement. He didn't notice he was falling behind the group until they turned a corner and disappeared from view. Hello? He called, suddenly aware he was alone. His voice echoed strangely among the plants. Captain Brooks? He turned around, trying to find the way back, but all paths looked the same. The garden seemed bigger on the inside than it looked from the entrance. After 10 minutes of walking, Greg admitted he was lost. Then he heard a soft humming. Following the sound, he pushed through some hanging vines and stumbled into a small clearing. There, sitting on what looked like a bench made of living wood, was another Lorelian. This one was smaller than the others, maybe 6 feet tall. Her skin glowed a soft pink color, and the crystal growths on her head formed what almost looked like a crown. She was moving her fingers over what appeared to be a book made of thin crystal pages. She looked up, and her skin immediately flashed bright blue in surprise, then settled into a gentle lavender color. "Oh, a human," she said in perfect English. "You're not supposed to be in this section of the garden." Greg straightened his uniform jacket nervously. "I'm sorry. I got separated from my group. I'm Greg Miller, xenolinguist with the Earth delegation." She tilted her head, studying him with those large black eyes. "A xenolinguist? You study alien languages?" "Yes, though I've only studied Earth languages until now. This is our first contact with non-humans." The Lorelian skin rippled with colors that reminded Greg of a sunset. "How fascinating. And frustrating too, I imagine, to have prepared for a job you cannot yet do," Greg laughed. "You're right. I've been learning your written language from the messages you sent, but it's different hearing it spoken. Would you like me to teach you a few words?" she asked, setting aside her crystal book. "You would do that?" She stood up and walked closer. Her movements were graceful, almost like she was floating. "Of course. It's not often I get to meet someone new. My father keeps me quite isolated." "Your father?" Her skin darkened slightly. "Yes, Emperor Zorn, I am Princess Zephyra." Greg's mouth fell open. He had just accidentally met the daughter of the alien emperor. I should go. I'm probably breaking 100 protocols just by talking to you." Zephyra laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Probably, but I won't tell if you won't." She reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were warm and sent a strange, tingling sensation up his arm. Greg noticed her skin glowed brighter where they touched. "Your mind is quiet," she said, sounding surprised. "What do you mean?" "Lorelians are telepathic. We can read the thoughts of most species, but you ... She frowned. "I sense nothing from you. It's like looking at a wall." Greg didn't know if that was good or bad. Is that unusual? "Very. I've never encountered a species completely immune to our abilities." Her skin shifted to a deep blue color. "This is why my father was so interested in meeting humans. You're the first race we've found that we cannot read." Before Greg could respond, voices called from beyond the garden. "That's my team looking." "For me," he said. "You should go," Zephyra agreed. "But perhaps we could meet again? I would like to learn more about humans." Greg knew he should say no. This was clearly not part of the diplomatic mission. But something about Zephyra intrigued him. She seemed different from the other Lorelians, more open, more curious. "I would like that," he said. She smiled, her skin glowing brighter. "Tomorrow, then. I'll find a way to get you assigned as my cultural liaison." She looked around then. leaned closer. Our meeting wasn't an accident, Greg Miller. I arranged for you to get separated from your group. I wanted to meet a human up close. Why me? Because you're the one who's been studying our language. You're the one trying to understand us. She touched his hand again. Now, go, before they send a search party. Greg hurried back toward the voices. When he found Captain Brooks and the others, they were worried and slightly angry. Where have you been, Miller? Brooks demanded. I got lost in the garden, sir. These plants are amazing. As they continued their tour, Greg couldn't stop thinking about Princess Zafira. He didn't know it yet, but that chance meeting, which wasn't really chance at all, would change the course of two civilizations forever. The next morning, Greg sat in the human quarters aboard the Lorellian ship, trying to focus on his work. He was supposed to be translating the welcome speech for Captain Brooks, but his mind kept drifting back to Princess Zafira. Miller, pay attention, said Susan Walters, the mission's second-in-command. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. This speech needs to be perfect. Sorry, ma'am, Greg said, returning to his tablet. Just then, the door chimed. A Lorellian attendant entered, his skin a formal shade of green. The Emperor requests the presence of Greg Miller, he announced. Princess Zafira has chosen him as her cultural liaison. Susan frowned. That's not part of our agreement. Miller is our lead linguist. We need him here. The attendant's skin darkened. The Emperor considers this a great honor. To refuse would be unwise. Greg caught Susan's eye and nodded slightly. They both knew this wasn't a request they could turn down. Very well, Susan said, but he reports back to us daily. 20 minutes later, Greg found himself in a part of the ship he hadn't seen before. The walls here were lined with what looked like liquid silver, and the lighting was softer, more natural. Princess Zafira waited in a circular room filled with objects from different worlds. Her skin glowed a pleased shade of gold when she saw him. You came, she said, as if she had doubted it would happen. I didn't have much choice, Greg replied with a small smile. Your father's requests seemed to be taken as commands. Zafira laughed. True, but I didn't think your captain would give you up so easily. You must be valuable to your team. I'm just good with languages, Greg said, looking around the room. Is this your home, my personal study? I collect artifacts from different worlds. She pointed to a shelf holding what looked like a simple clay pot. That's from a planet called Vordax. Their civilization is almost as old as ours. For the next 2 hours, Zafira showed Greg her collection, telling stories about each world. Greg tried to take notes, but there was too much information. You're not what I expected, he finally said during a pause. Zafira's skin shifted to a curious purple. What did you expect? I don't know, someone more formal? You seem different from the other Lorellians I've met. I am different, she said, her voice lower now. I don't always agree with how my people do things. That's why I wanted to meet you alone first. She moved to a window that looked out into space. My father sees your people as a curiosity, possibly a threat, but I see potential allies. Allies? Against what? Greg asked, moving to stand beside her. The universe is not as peaceful as we pretend, she said. There are species who would destroy younger civilizations like yours without thought. Greg felt a chill. This wasn't in any of their briefings. Are we in danger? Zafira's skin darkened. Not immediately. But in time, yes, all developing worlds face these threats. Some in our military think we should control your development. Guide it in ways that benefit us. And what do you think? I think your people deserve the chance to find your own path. She turned to face him. That's why I asked for you. I want to understand humans better, to help convince my father that you should be treated as equals. Over the next few weeks, Greg spent most of his days with Zafira. Each morning, he would report to Captain Brooks and Susan, telling them what he had learned. Each afternoon, he would join the princess in her study or walk with her through different parts of the enormous ship. ZEPHYRA taught him about Lorellian history and science. Greg told her about Earth, showing pictures of oceans and mountains, cities and deserts. She seemed especially interested in human art and music. "Your species creates such beauty despite your short lives," she said one day as they listened to Batch. "We live for hundreds of years, yet many of my people create nothing?" "Maybe it's because our lives are short," Greg suggested. "We know we don't have much time." Sometimes they would sit in comfortable silence, Zephyra reading her crystal books, while Greg worked on translations. He began to notice that her skin color shifted, with her emotions bright gold when happy, deep blue when sad, purple when curious. He also noticed other Lorelians watching them with what seemed like disapproval. "They don't like me being here, do they?" he asked one day. Zephyra sighed. "Some believe I spend too much time with you. It's not traditional for a royal to be so informal with an alien." "Should we stop?" "No," she said firmly. "What we're doing is important." One evening, as they walked through a quiet part of the ship, Zephyra suddenly pulled Greg into an empty room. "I need to tell you something," she said, her skin a nervous shade of gray. "There's going to be a special council meeting tomorrow. General Krell will present his report on humans." "What kind of report?" Greg asked. "His recommendation for how to handle your species." She hesitated. "It won't be favorable. He wants to place monitoring stations throughout your solar system, to watch you, control you." Greg felt his chest tighten. "That sounds like the first step toward making Earth a colony." "It is," she admitted. "My father hasn't decided yet, but Krell is persuasive. I've been trying to change my father's mind, but ... quote. But what?" Zephyra's skin rippled with frustrated colors. "He doesn't understand why I care so much about humans. He thinks I'm being naive." Greg took a chance and reached for her hand. Her skin glowed brighter at his touch, sending that now familiar tingling sensation up his arm. "What can I do?" he asked. "Come to the council meeting with me," she said. "You won't be allowed to speak, but your presence will make them uncomfortable. They prefer to decide the fate of other species without having to look them in the eye. Won't that cause problems for you?" She squeezed his hand. "Probably. But I've been causing problems my whole life. One more won't matter." As they left the room, they nearly bumped into Ambassador Threll. His skin flashed a shocked orange when he saw them holding hands. "Princess," he said stiffly, his eyes fixed on Greg. "Your father has been asking for you." "Thank you, Ambassador." "I'll go to him." "No." Zephyra gave Greg's hand one last squeeze before letting go. "Tomorrow morning," she whispered. "Meet me at the garden entrance." As she walked away with Threll, Greg could feel the ambassador's disapproval like a physical force. He didn't care? Something important was happening between him and Zephyra, something that might affect both their worlds. Back in the human quarters, Greg found Susan waiting for him. "Miller, we need to talk," she said, her face serious. "The captain is concerned about how much time you're spending with the princess." "I'm learning valuable information," Greg said. "Are you? Or are you being fed what they want you to know?" Susan studied his face. "Be careful. Don't forget where your loyalty lies." Greg nodded, but as he walked to his room, he wondered if it was already too late for such warnings. In just a few weeks, Princess Zephyra had become more than just an assignment to him. And tomorrow he would have to choose which world he truly wanted to protect. Greg didn't sleep much that night. He kept thinking about what Zephyra had told him. If General Krell convinced the Emperor to place monitoring stations around Earth, it would change everything. Humans would develop under the watchful eyes of the Lorelians, never truly free to make their own choices. By morning, he had made his decision. He would go to the council meeting with Zephyra, but first, he needed to tell Captain Brooks what was happening. He found the captain in the small room they used as an office. "Sir, I have important information," Greg said, closing the door behind him. Captain Brooks looked up from his tablet. "Go ahead, Miller." Greg told him everything Zephyra had shared about General Krell's plans, the council meeting, and the monitoring stations. "And you believe the princess is telling you the truth?" Brooks asked when Greg finished. "Yes, sir. She's different from the others. She wants to help us." Brooks was quiet for a moment. "Or she's manipulating you, making you trust her." "I don't think so," Greg said firmly. Fine, go to this meeting. Learn what you can? Brooks looked Greg in the eye. But remember, your first duty is to Earth. Greg nodded and left to meet Zephyra at the garden entrance as planned. She was waiting for him, her skin a nervous shade of gray. She wore formal clothing, a flowing silver garment that seemed to float around her tall frame. You came, she said, relief in her voice. Of course I did. They walked together through halls Greg had never seen before. These corridors were wider, with high ceilings and walls covered in what looked like moving artwork scenes from Lorelian history. Greg guessed the council chamber is just ahead, Zephyra whispered, saying nothing unless directly asked a question. And even then, keep your answers short? I understand. The chamber was a large round room with a high domed ceiling. In the center was a circular table with 12 seats. Most were already filled with Lorelians in formal attire. Their skin colors shifted when Greg entered, mostly to shades of surprise and disapproval. Emperor Zorn sat at the head of the table. He was taller than the other Lorelians, with more elaborate crystal formations on his head. His skin glowed with a steady, powerful blue light. Daughter, he said, his deep voice filling the room. You bring a human to our council? Father. This is Greg Miller, my cultural liaison, Zephyra said, her voice steady despite her nervous coloring. I thought it appropriate he attend, since we are discussing his species today. The Emperor studied Greg with those large black eyes. Very well, he may observe. They took seats at the table. Greg noticed General Krell across from them, his skin a hard, cold shade of green, his eyes never leaving Greg. The meeting began. With reports from various officials, Greg understood only parts of what they said, as they spoke too quickly in the Lorelian language. Zephyra quietly translated the most important points for him. Finally, it was General Krell's turn to speak. My Emperor, he began in the human language, clearly wanting Greg to understand. I have completed my analysis of the human species. They are primitive but developing quickly, too quickly. He pressed something on the table, and a holographic image of Earth appeared above them. In just 300 years, they have gone from simple combustion engines to basic space travel. Their weapons have advanced from gunpowder to nuclear. At this rate, they could become a threat within a single Lorelian lifetime. We have seen no signs of aggression from them, Zephyra countered. Krell's skin darkened. Because they are weak now. But what about in 100 years? 200? We cannot read their minds to know their true intentions. He waved his hand, and the hologram changed to show what looked like small satellites. I propose we place monitoring stations throughout their system. These will allow us to track their development and, if necessary, limit their access to certain technologies. You mean control them, Zephyra said, her skin flashing with anger. I mean protect the galaxy from a potentially dangerous species. Krell turned to the Emperor. We have done this before with other races. It is the prudent course of action. Greg couldn't stay silent any longer. May I speak, Emperor? The room went quiet. The Emperor studied Greg for a long moment, then nodded. General Krell is right about one thing, Greg said. Humans advance quickly. We're curious and determined, but these aren't flaws, they're strengths. He stood up, looking around the table. Yes, we've made weapons. But we've also made medicines, we've written poems. We've composed music that makes people cry with joy. We're not perfect, but we're trying to be better. Pretty words, said Krell, but they change nothing. You cannot be trusted to develop wisely on your own. No species can, Greg replied. We all make mistakes, even Lorelians, I imagine. There were murmurs around the table. The Emperor raised a hand for silence. You speak boldly for a member of a young race, he said to Greg. I speak honestly. If you place these monitoring stations around Earth, you won't be helping us. You'll be controlling us. And eventually humans will discover them. What happens? Then, will we trust you after learning you've been watching us in secret? The Emperor turned to Zephyra. You have spent time with this human. What is your assessment? Humans deserve the chance to find their own path, she said, echoing the words she had said to Greg weeks ago. Yes, they may make mistakes, but they learn from them. They grow. If we control their development, we rob them of that growth. General. Krell slammed his hand on the table. This is absurd. The princess has become too attached to this human. She cannot see clearly. I see very clearly, Zephyra said, her skin now a steady, determined purple. I see a species with great potential. A species that could become a true ally if we treat them with respect. The Emperor was quiet for a long time, looking between his daughter and General Krell. Finally, he spoke. I will consider both arguments before making my decision. This council is adjourned? As everyone began to leave, Krell approached Greg and Zephyra. His skin was a dangerous shade of dark red. You overstepped, princess, he said quietly. Bringing. This human here was a mistake. The mistake would be treating humans as inferiors, she replied. Krell's eyes narrowed. Be careful. Your position does not make you untouchable. He walked away, leaving Greg with a feeling of dread. Did he just threaten you? Greg asked as they left the chamber. Not directly. That would be treason. Zephyra's skin was still upset, but the message was clear. They walked in silence until they reached a quiet corridor. Thank you for speaking. Up, Zephyra said. It was brave. I had to. I couldn't let him talk about Earth that way. Greg hesitated. Do you think it made a difference? I don't know. My father listens to Krell. They fought in wars together before I was born. She touched Greg's arm. But he also listens to me, sometimes. Greg covered her hand with his. What happens now? We wait for his decision. She looked worried. Krell won't give up easily. He sees humans as tools to be used in our ongoing conflicts. Your immunity to our telepathy makes you valuable. Valuable as what? Soldiers? Zephyra nodded. Against the Vordax. They can block our telepathy, but perhaps not against minds they cannot sense. Greg felt cold. I need to warn my team. Be careful what you say, Zephyra warned. Krell has spies. Everywhere. Meet me tonight in the garden. There's something I need to show you. As she walked away, Greg couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get much more dangerous for both of them. That evening, Greg made his way to the garden, careful to avoid being seen. The ship seemed quieter than usual. He kept looking over his shoulder, feeling like someone was watching him. The garden was dark except for the glowing plants that cast soft blue and purple light across the paths. Greg followed the route he remembered from his first meeting with Zephyra. Hoping he wouldn't get lost again, he found her waiting in the small clearing with the living wood bench. Her skin glowed just enough to outline her tall figure in the darkness. You weren't followed? She asked as he approached. I don't think so. It's hard to tell on this ship, Zephyra nodded. Come with me. We don't have much time. She led him deeper into the garden, past plants he hadn't seen before. Some moved as they passed, reaching out with leafy tendrils as if curious. Others closed up tight as if afraid. They came to a wall that seemed to be made of solid metal. Zephyra placed her hand on it and a doorway appeared. This is a private section, she explained. Only the royal family can enter. Inside was a small room filled with technology Greg didn't recognize. Screens covered one wall, showing different parts of the ship. Another wall held what looked like weapons. What is this place? Greg asked. My personal security room. It's not monitored. Zephyra went to a console and pressed several buttons. I need to show you something I discovered. A screen lit up, showing what looked like a laboratory. Lorelian scientists moved around tables where strange equipment sat. This is Krell's private research facility, Zephyra said. He doesn't know I can access his security feeds. What are they doing? Zephyra touched another button, and the image zoomed in on one of the tables. Greg's stomach turned. There, connected to various machines, was what looked like a human brain. Is that... He couldn't finish the question. Not real, Zephyra assured him. It's a model they created based on scans they took when your ship first docked. They're studying how human minds work. Why? To find a way to control them. Zephyra's skin darkened to a troubled blue. Krell doesn't just want to monitor your planet. He wants to develop technology that can influence human thoughts and decisions. Greg felt sick. Mind control? Something like that. Not direct control, but subtle influence. Enough to guide your species in the direction he wants. We have to stop him, Greg said. We have to tell the Emperor. It's not that simple, Zephyra turned off the screen. Krell has been my father's friend and advisor for centuries. His word carries more weight than mine. Then we need proof. Something my people can take back to Earth. Zephyra was quiet for a moment. There is a way, but it's dangerous. She went to another console and pulled up a map of the ship. This is Krell's main laboratory. The research data is stored on isolated systems that can only be accessed from inside. You want me to break in and steal it? Not alone. I'll go with you. Her skin flashed with determination. Tonight, while Krell is meeting with my father, Greg studied the map. Even if we get in, how do we get the data? I don't know how to use your technology. I do. Zephyra picked up a small crystal disk from a shelf. This device can copy their files. All we need is a few minutes of access. Greg thought about what Captain Brooks had told him. His duty was to Earth. If Krell was planning to control human minds, he had to stop it. Okay, he said. Let's do it. They spent the next hour planning their route through the ship. Zephyra showed Greg how to avoid the security systems and which corridors would be empty at this time of night. Take this, she said, handing him a small device. It's a personal shield. If anyone tries to stop us, press this button. It will protect you for about 30 seconds. What about you? Zephyra's skin rippled with something like amusement. I have natural defenses. She held up her hand and energy crackled between her fingers. Royal Lorelians are trained in energy manipulation from childhood. They left the security room and made their way through the ship. Greg's heart pounded so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. But the corridors were empty, just as Zephyra had predicted. When they reached the section where Krell's laboratory was located, Zephyra pulled Greg into a small alcove. From here, we need to be silent, she whispered. There are guards ahead. They crept forward until they could see two Lorelians standing outside a door. Their skin was a dull gray color, and they carried what looked like energy weapons. Wait here, Zephyra whispered. Before Greg could stop her, she stepped into the corridor. The guards immediately straightened. Princess, one said, bowing slightly. This area is restricted. By whose authority? Zephyra asked, her voice cold and royal. General Krell's, Your Highness? I see. And does the general's authority outrank mine? The guards looked at each other uncertainly. No, Your Highness, but we have strict orders. I am conducting an inspection. Of all research facilities, Zephyra interrupted. By order of the Emperor. Her skin glowed with a powerful, commanding blue that Greg had never seen before. The guards seemed to shrink under her gaze. Yes, Princess, they said together, stepping. Aside, Zephyra motioned for Greg to join her, and they entered the laboratory. Inside, it looked just like the images they had seen on the security feed. Tables of equipment, screens showing data, and in the center, the model of the human brain. The data storage is over here, Zephyra said, moving to a console in the corner. Keep watch while I copy the files. Greg stood by the door, his heart still racing. He could hear the guards talking outside, their voices low and worried. Hurry, he whispered. I think they're calling someone. Zephyra worked quickly, her fingers flying over the controls. She inserted the crystal disk into a slot, and the screen filled with flowing symbols. It's working, she said. Just a few. More seconds. Suddenly, an alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed along the walls. We've been detected, Zephyra said, her skin paling. The system has security protocols I didn't know about. Is it done? Almost. She stared at the screen, willing it to move faster. There. She pulled the disk out just as the door slid open. 4 more guards rushed in, weapons raised. Behind them stood General Krell, his skin a furious red. Princess. Zephyra, he said, his voice dangerously calm, and the human. How unexpected. General, Zephyra said, slipping the disk into her pocket. We were just leaving. I'm afraid I can't allow that, Krell gestured to the guards. Arrest them both. The princess for treason and the human for espionage. Greg reached for the shield device Zafira had given him, but a guard fired first. Energy wrapped around him, freezing him in place. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. He could only watch as the guards surrounded Zafira, but the princess wasn't. Helpless, her skin blazed with brilliant light, and energy exploded from her hands, knocking 2 guards backward. She spun toward Greg, firing another blast that broke the energy holding him. "Run!" she shouted, throwing something to him. Greg caught it, the crystal disc with the copied data. He wanted to stay and help her, but more guards were pouring in. Zafira created a wall of energy between them and the guards. "Go!" she yelled. "Get this to your people! I'll find you!" The last thing Greg saw as he ran from the laboratory was Zafira, surrounded by guards, her skin glowing like a star as she fought to give him time to escape.